Right, so obviously the East Anglian Daily Times have taken this stance. What's your view on
They were between a rock and a hard place for a long time, weren't they? Obviously, they need to keep a good relationship with the club as the local newspaper. I know in sort of today's times, maybe more social media is the bigger influence rather than the traditional newspapers. But it's still a big thing for the newspaper to come out and call for a change. Um, they've been, let's just say, pushed by a lot of the supporters now asking for this, who kind of feel, with the stadiums empty, that's the only sort of way they can funnel their ability to change anything at the club. So it's very frustrating for everybody. I understand why they would have waited, but I do admire them for taking the stance now.
that? Yeah, and it is an unusual thing to do, isn't it? You don't often see a newspaper come out against the manager, so it's quite a brave move for them, isn't it?
I think so, and especially Andy, with it being, it is quite parochial, isn't it? It's Suffolk and it's Ipswich. It's not maybe a big city where this has happened to Paul Lambert before in Birmingham, where maybe there are competing newspapers and a bit of a bigger population and a bigger fan base. And of course, there was a precedent before in the Jim Magilton era where the feeling is the newspaper went a little bit too early against Jim, which I think has made them even more cautious now.
Yeah, and looking at Ipswich's form, it has been bad, particularly against the top sides. What's your view of how the season's gone so far?
Well, it's atrocious against the top sides, Andy. It's like, I think if right now, if we stop the clocks, the current top six, it's 6 defeats and only 1 goal even scored. No goals in the last 5 games. Just still no evidence that Ipswich are going to get out of this division. Obviously, in order to do that, you literally have to beat the top 6 sides, either unless you're the most incredible flat track bullies that can, destroy all of the bottom half. You're just not going to get up. And particularly with the playoff system as it is, and Ipswich falling foul of that many times in their history, the idea that you're going to have this ineptitude against the top sides and get up is just fanciful. So we're waiting and waiting and waiting for the evidence that there's going to be a challenge. And still, a good couple of years into Lambert's tenure now, and with all the advantages that Ipswich's side comparatively in League One has with the size of the club, it's just not happening, is it?
No, it's not. And we saw the paper said that, the majority, in their opinion, the majority of Ipswich fans don't have confidence in Paul Lambert. Is that something that you think is reflected in people you've spoken to?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I think we're a reasonable fan base, Ipswich fans. I think we got a little bit dragged through the mud with the Mick McCarthy departure, where the easy narrative, because it was Mick and he is a national football figure, the national press went for the easy narrative. Oh, Ipswich fans hounded out McCarthy. Look, they've got what they deserve now with this relegation. And that wasn't the case. We all knew there was a bigger picture than that. Lambert was given somewhat of a free pass in the first season with a lot of games to go, to then be judged on League One form, which was 11th place. Obviously, then you had the caveat of COVID and the points per game finish. But now it really does come into unacceptable mode. And being around the Ipswich Town sphere and with my work on the podcast we do, yeah, what you've said is perfectly reasonable, and it is what the newspaper's done is reflective, I think, of the vast majority of people who follow the club.
Yeah, and we've talked about the record against the promotion rivals, the lowest position last season since 1953. Is there any evidence that Paul can turn this around, in your opinion?
None so far, no, because you're looking at sort of points per game and extrapolating things across a season. And yes, they're a couple of points off the playoffs. So if you run that out, they'll finish just outside the playoffs. I think around low 70 points. But we know in League One that the table gets stretched out, and there are going to be 4 or 5 teams with a much higher points total than that. And as you've hit on, even if you do finish in the playoffs, you literally have to win 3 games against top 6 sides over the space of 10 days in that playoff competition. And over 2 seasons now, Andy, not just this one, they've just not been able to do it. And of course, just outside the top 6 is Sunderland and Crewe, which are the next 2 games. And, well, it really does look like 4 points from those 2 games minimum is the only thing that's going to save Lambert short term now.
Yeah, absolutely. There is a human element to this as well, because Paul's obviously, he's got a family. He's just had COVID. He's recovering from that. Is there any part of you that feels this is a tiny bit out of order from the paper going for him right now?
Of course, yeah. We forget the human element, don't we? Because it's football, and because we're that little bit removed. You are effectively calling for someone's employment to be gone. I think there are standoffs for people who are trade-offs, rather, for people who are in the public sphere. Though you do get a lot of privileges when you're a famous person, which Paul Lambert is. You're working in an industry that a lot of people would love to. Obviously, he's there because of his talent and a lot of years of good body of work. You're very well paid to do this. So, yes, there is the human element, but in the context of all of those privileges that you do get as well, if it's done, which the newspaper have done in a timely and reasonable way, it's not personal. It's not Paul Lambert, we don't like you. It's Paul Lambert, the job you appear to be doing and have done does not appear to be adequate enough for what is required at the club at this time. So you're totally right there. You mustn't ever forget the human element, but it's football. It's ruthless. We know it. And generally, it's the ruthless clubs and the ruthless individuals with that determination that get to the top at football. So, it is what it is.
Finally, I'm gonna put you in Marcus Evans' shoes. So you're Marcus Evans. Would you personally make a change?
Oh God. Well, if I was Marcus Evans, I probably would be trying everything I could do to not make a change that appears to be what he's done, because I've hired this guy on this long-term contract. I want stability. It's probably going to cost me personally some money to tear up this one contract, and then I've got to go and hire another guy. If I'm Marcus Evans, it's an absolute nuisance for me to make a change, and it is the last resort. Evans has not wanted to do this in the past. He's been quite happy to leave his managers in situ for long periods of time. And essentially, with, I guess, Lee O'Neill, the whatever job title he's got in there, he's the sort of go-between to run the club. So if I was Marcus Evans, no, I wouldn't want to make a change, but I would feel that I use the term between a rock and a hard place. If the newspaper are between a rock and a hard place, Marcus Evans is between the Grand Canyon and I don't know. Think of something even harder than that, Andy. So, to answer your question, literally, if I was Marcus Evans, no, I wouldn't want to, but I'd be feeling I possibly had to.
Yeah, perfect. Well, thanks so much for your time, Benjamin. I really appreciate it. It's really good of you to do it.
Pleasure.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button to see more videos from this channel. Hit the subscribe button, and to be notified every time we upload, ring the bell for those notifications to come through on your device. If you really want to support the channel and me as a content creator, I will be eternally grateful if you head over to the merch store and grab something, or support over on Patreon, patreon.com/Benjamin Bloom. Thank you for your time. Go and watch another video.